You called it out and told me made it here. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Can people hear me? Can you hear me? Everybody can hear me well? I can hardly hear me. Okay, so we're going to be cooking with beef this afternoon. How many people here cook beef on a regular basis? I like that. I like that. I know you do. We have a rancher in watching too. Are you ranchers? You are. How many head have you got?
Too many.
Too many. That means you can't go on vacation?
That's right.
Darn. Well, I have some recipes here. I'm going to hand out the recipe right now so you can follow along. You don't need to take notes. Now, are you going to cook her? You going to cook for her? You're going to cook for her, right? I think some of these recipes are easy enough you could. So the whole idea today is to make one meal and then sort of have the cooking done and the big working done, and then you can sort of make some fun recipes the rest of the week. So we're going to be making this sort of cozy beef supper. You're going to learn to cook, right? Hey, my boys cook. Do you know they cook for their girlfriends? You want to impress the girl? You get the girl through the stomach. There you go. You know what? I'll give you a whole bunch and you can share them. I can see you're really eager. Are you the cook in the family?
Oh no, I don't. I'm the sous chef.
You're the sous chef. That means that you do the dishes?
That's it.
That's okay. I'm going to give these to you to hand out to anybody else coming up. So, it's funny. I go to the grocery store and you can tell, when I was a little girl, we used to buy a half a beef and put it in the freezer, and that was just a typical thing that we did, and my mom would just go to the freezer and take out whatever she wanted for the day, but we don't do that so much anymore. We have to go to the grocery store, and so I find that we're less familiar with our cuts of beef. And so today I'm going to be using something called a cross rib. And so this is a cut that I quite like. I find it to have some nice marbling to it, and it's just really good when you are doing something like braising, which is what we're going to be doing today with the Instant Pot. So how many of you actually have Instant Pots? Anybody? You have an Instant Pot? A lot of people are wondering about Instant Pots. We're hearing a lot about Instant Pots and what the heck is an Instant Pot and do I really want an Instant Pot? You don't have to have an Instant Pot, I'm going to tell you that right now. A slow cooker is just fine. And if you don't have a slow cooker, just having a nice casserole with a lid on it that goes in your oven is fine too. The Instant Pot is faster, but it's not like super fast. You're not going to have this meal that we're doing today in 20 minutes. It's just not going to happen. It does take longer. I set it for an hour and 15 minutes. It takes 15 minutes for it to come up to pressure, and then it takes another 10 minutes to come down, and then when you release the pressure at the end, it's another 5 minutes to release. So you're looking at about 2 hours you need to calculate when you're doing this meal today before you actually have that on the table. So that's better than cooking it all day long, but it's not a 20-minute meal either. There are lots of things you can do in the slow cooker, like in the Instant Pot, that are 20 minutes, but not what we're doing here today. So I couldn't come up with a really good name for this because it's a little bit different than what you usually see. It's not a stew, it's not a roast, but we do take roasting meat and we cut it down to smaller pieces. So I've got some carrots here, and because this is happening in the Instant Pot, it's going to really cook your vegetables really, really well. So you want to have big pieces of carrots instead of these little tiny ones. They're going to be quite soft, by the time that you're done. So I usually just kind of cut them in three, and I like a bigger carrot for that. So what does the carrots do? Well, number one, they add flavor, but number two, they're going to be the vegetable that's going to happen on the plate as well. So this generally will serve about 4 to 5 people, I would say, because in Saskatchewan we have really good appetites. So I'm going to take a large onion and I'm quartering that as well, throwing that into the Instant Pot. And if you want to see what I'm doing, you can see there on the TV monitor. It kind of gives you a glimpse as to what's happening inside the pot. And then on top of that, I've got some garlic, because garlic just adds so much flavor. So I just peeled my garlic, and I like to smash the garlic to really get it already broken up, and then just use my knife to cut it into smaller pieces, just like that. Just sprinkle that in. And so everything is kind of layered in this. It's really like hardly any work at all. Oops, there we go, finally. Just give me a sec, there we go. All right, so there we've got that going. I'm just going to move this off to the side. I am going to use that broccoli later. I'm just not going to use it right now. A little bit more garlic there. So here we've got our roast. So remember, this was a cross rib. So the first thing we need to do is take off the strings, because we're going to cut this up into smaller pieces. You could leave it as it is, but you're going to see in a minute why it's a good idea to take off the string, because we're going to cut this down. So what we're going to do is we're going to place the roast sort of standing up, and we're just going to cut it right down the center, just like that. So now we've got 2 pieces, and you can see the marbling, in that piece of meat. Isn't that nice? It looks really good. Marbling is actually really good. I think that we've been sort of given the wrong information about fat. We actually need the fat in our bodies, and we need it in our cooking. It adds a tremendous amount of flavor and tenderness to the meat as well. So you can see that I'm cutting it into strips. Almost looks a little bit like a beef rib, you know? You're looking for something that is that size. And so so that gives me, there's 6 pieces already. So you can see that those pieces are going to become the individual pieces that go on the plate. So I'm just going to change my gloves, because I'm going to be using some rub in order to put some rub. So probably a lot of you have never seen this before. But, so one of the things that I do a lot of things. I write about food, I take pictures about food, and I've started a new company with my own line of rubs and blends called Be a Kitchen Hero. And I kind of designed this line the way that I cook. I wanted something that wasn't very high in salt. I wanted something with lots of flavor that was easy to use and gave the average cook a whole lot of options when they're out there cooking. So one of the ones that I'm using today is called Flaming Tuque, and it is not fiery hot. What it actually is smoky. So those nice smoked Spanish paprika. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some here in a little container. I'm just going to send it around, and you can have a little smell of this product, and feel free to give a little taste if you like. So I'm going to give this to you and just have a smell and just pass it around. So this is going to add a really nice smoky element to our meal. So how are we going to apply this? So what we're going to do is we just move off our beef to one side. And so you're going to take some of the rub, and you're going to literally rub it in with your fingers all over. And what happens now is this gets right into the fibers of the beef and adds a huge amount of flavor. And you think, oh, it's going to be so much, but it actually is not. When you get it all cooked up, it is really just beautiful. So you can see that I'm just rubbing it all over and throwing it. You can see that. I think it should show there in the pot. It doesn't take very long to do this. You're probably going to need about a half a cup, maybe less, third of a cup. Just keep rolling it in and rubbing that right in. You know, when I do steak spice, I do the same thing. I actually rub the steak spice right into the fibers of the meat. That's how you get the flavor. You gotta really get in there and don't be afraid to really handle the meat. And I just keep adding that. Super, just like this. And you wanna make sure that you're coating every side of the meat. It's completely coated. You can do this exact same recipe with beef ribs, and it is absolutely delicious. When I do this at home, I don't even want to eat the vegetables on my plate. All I want to do is just eat the ribs. Just give me a plate of ribs. There we go. We've got a couple of pieces left. That goes in there like that. The only thing is you are going to stain your board a little bit. Paprika can really turn things red. So your cutting board is probably going to end up in the dishwasher. So of course, many of you know I'm on the Wheatland Cafe. We've been doing that for 13 years. And every time I meet people, they always want to ask about JC Garden, because JC likes to eat. He's a great co-host, lots of fun, and is a cook himself. So there we go. So now we've got this layer of meat, right? Right then and there on top of all of our beautiful vegetables. Now we got to make a sauce. The sauce for this is so easy. So easy. We're going to put in a half a cup of barbecue sauce, just like that. And you think, really? Is a half a cup enough? Yes. Half a cup is enough. In goes a half a cup of stout beer. So you have literally 1 cup of liquid. Get out your whisk. Whisk that together, just like that. And pour it over. This beautiful beer with a nice barbecue sauce. Just like that. That's it. How many minutes did that take? You saw me do the whole thing. And that goes, there we go. Just like that. So what I do now is I put it on the meat function for 1 hour and 15 minutes. That is not the time that is recommended when you buy the Instant Pot. What recommended is 45 minutes. It's not long enough. It doesn't allow enough of the fat to render out and enough moisture to penetrate the meat. An hour and 15 works really well. One of the things you want to make sure with the Instant Pot, remember the old pressure cookers? These things are practically foolproof now. You're not going to blow the top off like we used to. I remember one time coming home from school and the ceiling in the kitchen was kind of covered with lots of stuff. Mom had taken off the top just a little bit too early. Here they've done it practically where it's impossible. So there's a little vent at the back. You want to turn it so that it's not at the vent function, at the one at the back. And what's going to happen is it's going to build up in pressure. It's going to take about 15 minutes. And once that up in pressure, it'll start to cook. And you can put your ear up against it and you'll hear it bubbling and moving and going on in there. When it's done, you're going to leave that vent until the time says 10 minutes. And then you're going to move the vent to the front and it'll just let out the last bit of pressure that's in there. It'll probably take about 5 minutes. You'll also know it's up to pressure when the little red knob pops up. You cannot take the lid off then. I don't even think it will let you. So let's have a look here. We're going to do a beautiful little beef meal. We've got this. Now let's see what it looks like. So this has been puttering away here. I'm just going to reduce the heat a little bit. So I'm going to take out what I've done here. Instead of serving it with potatoes, I wanted to show you something just a little bit different. So let's see these pieces of beautiful pieces of beef. We've got a couple of pieces here. We've got those beautiful carrots. The carrots are soft, very flavorful. And I think because we're in Saskatchewan, I think we need one more piece of beef. And we've got our broccoli. So there is a beautiful meal. You want to put on more sauce, you can do that. So there's your first meal. Beautiful pieces of meat. Everything has been individually seasoned on the outside of every single piece. And you put some broth on there and you've got this gorgeous meal. But now you've got some beef to pull. So who's going to pull beef for me? Chad, do you want to come up and pull some beef? Get Chad cooking. Chad is a rancher from down in Estevan. So Chad, I'm going to get you to pull some beef. Do you know how to pull beef? You know how to lasso them though. So I'm just going to get out some pieces here. I'm going to show you how to do it. And you can keep coming over and pulling out the pieces of beef and just keep shredding it until we're completely done. So we'll just get these ones going so people can see what we're doing. So of course, this is really, really tender beef, right? Because we braised it. So when you want to pull beef, what you're going to do is you're going to take your fork and you're just going to pull it. Look how beautiful and tender that is. We're just going to shred it. And because I've cut it into the right size of pieces right from the get-go, it's in the right size of pieces, right? So you're just going to do that. So if you need more, we can just head on over and get some more because everybody's going to have a taste. So I'm going to let you do that. So what are we doing next? So now we're going to do some beef on a bun. Likes beef on a bun, right? So I like to have beef on a bun with some coleslaw. How about that? Does everybody usually put coleslaw or do they just have it plain? Plain coleslaw. I see nodding of heads. Coleslaw or plain? Plain. Plain. Well, this is something that you see a lot down in the States with barbecue. Barbecue being that long, low, and slow cooking. Doesn't that look good? Oh my goodness. So let's make a really quick coleslaw here. So I'm just going to grab a whisk. Not this one I used. This one here. I think this was already. So yeah, if you want, yeah, go get some more there. So if you can see on there, it calls for some cabbage, some grated carrot, and then a quarter of a cup of some chopped parsley. So we're going to throw that right in the bowl. And you know, this is one of these recipes where if you want some peppers in there, you want more onion, you want more carrot, I mean really do whatever you want. You might, the only difference is you might have to adjust your dressing amount a little bit. And then we've got some celery seed. I love celery seed in my oil and vinegar coleslaw. This is actually a recipe we did earlier this season.